Welcome back. This is Mike's Restaurant and we are doing question number 4. So let's pull in the question here and let's be sure we know what we're doing. What would you recommend to be the best course of action for Jake to follow in order to achieve a profit before tax of 115,000? Explain how you would achieve this. So first thing, notice that this is a 50-mark question. It requires quite a detailed explanation. Can't be answered in 5 lines. You need to use the numbers and detailed explanations as to what changes you will make in order to achieve this profit. So let's go back to the spreadsheet here. One of the biggest problems with this question is it can often be answered by some simple, let's call it spreadsheet gymnastics. We're going to just play with the numbers in order to get the ideal mix of variables. The challenge with that is it doesn't bear any resemblance to what you might have to do out there in the real world in order to achieve that profit. Because changing a number on a spreadsheet doesn't mean that the number in the business or achieving the number will be achieved. So the way of answering this question is actually to really practically go through this income statement line by line and ask the questions around how can you, or what can you do, or what would be reasonable to expect in order to increase or reduce certain numbers. So the way I position this for my students is to say, go through these expenses first, maybe start there, and ask where can you reduce certain expenses and how would you practically do it. So for example, let's take the food cost, which is the most expensive item in the business, where this cost has gone up by 20%, and say, well, what would you practically have to go and do in order to mitigate that increase in expense? Well, you would have to go and speak with several service providers who are providing you with those raw materials and have conversations with them about the products that they are providing, the quantities, how can you arrange some better pricing, can you get some volume discounting if it's maybe some non-perishables. What arrangement can you come to? It actually requires the development of a relationship before you can simply go and change a number on a spreadsheet. So I want to kind of put that up front, because that's something that you need to go and do on your own, to go through all these numbers in order to find out what's the ideal. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little bit of spreadsheet gymnastics and put some numbers together and see if we can produce this profit. And we might then step back and say, okay, well, actually, what do we need to go and do? So let's dive in here. I'm going to use, just for now, our grid that we are familiar with. And the first thing I'm going to put in here is 115,000, because that is our objective. Okay, so we have some expenses here of 174,000, and obviously I need to go and reduce something here. And I'm going to start off by saying, what if I could just reduce that by, say, 5%? Okay, so I'm going to create a little list here. I'm going to say, let's start off by saying fixed expenses. That's where we're starting. And what if we said make that 5%? All right, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to say that 174, I'm going to multiply this by, open brackets, 1 minus 5%, close brackets. So if you say 1 minus 5%, effectively what we're doing is we are multiplying this number by 95%, and therefore reducing it by 5%. All right, so that's a pretty reasonable start. what we could do then is we could say, all right, that one plus that one will give us a gross profit. Let's go and reduce the variable costs, variable expenses, and for now let's say, well, what if that was 5%? And we could do the same thing. We could come here to these variable costs and we could multiply them, open brackets, 1 minus 5%, and we are going to get a number for the variable costs. And now what we can do is we could say GP plus cost of sales gets us to a sales amount. That seems all right. That seems okay. What we've done, we've really only done two things. We've reduced our expenses by 5% at this stage, just mathematically. We haven't itemized anything specific that we've done. And we've reduced our variable cost by 5%. So we might say we've got an increase from the suppliers by, say, just 15% rather than the 20% suggested in the case. And there might be an answer. And we could calculate here, what is the gross profit in this business? That would be that number divided by the GP divided by the sales, and Alt HP will give us a percentage, and we've got a 42% profit margin there. Yep, that looks okay. That might be a little bit high. It might not be achievable to be able to do that. We might only be able to reduce these variable expenses by, say, 3%. How about that? Now we're going to need a few more decimal places here just to get a sense of what's going on here. All right. And at this stage we have really only reduced the variable costs. We haven't increased the price per se. By reducing the variable costs, we've increased the profit margin, and we have determined, we actually have got a sales price increase in there. We've got a sales price increase in there because this has grown from 29% to 41%. It's made up of two things. It's made up of a reduction of variable costs and an increase in price. That might be a good enough target to leave it at. So what I'm showing you here is that we can play with these variables in order to get an ideal answer. But specifically to answer this question, we should go and look here at these expenses and say, which ones can we reduce and how? And as it turns out, the biggest cost reduction is likely to be with the food cost and not in many other areas. It's very difficult to go reducing the labor cost because the labor here is a very important part of our restaurant. The other alternative is to look at the manager's salary. Maybe that's a big ticket item that we need to think about reducing. Maybe we need to put into practice some actions in order to reduce the use of utilities. Maybe that can be done around using less water, less electricity, those sorts of things. Some specific processes there. Maybe we can get rid of some of these laundry items, although it's not a big ticket item, but instead of washing tablecloths and napkins, we can move towards a environment that uses paper consumables there. And we could hunt around here for some other bits and pieces and see if we could make some adjustments along the way here. But ultimately what we're looking for is some combination of all of these into an ideal solution for this business. We could go a step further and we could construct a full income statement as part of question 4. I'm not going to go into that detail now. I think we've done justice to Mike's restaurant with some great income statement gymnastics in order to test all our various options available to us. Well done. You have completed Mike's restaurant.